Am I the a-hole for not giving my estranged sister a place to stay with her kids while she was on her way to our parents? I have been estranged from my sister ever since she carried out an affair with my ex-fiancé. I found out because my brother caught the two of them together. She tried to get my blessing for them to be together. I just told her to consider herself down one sister and told her I never wanted to see her again. I stuck to my word. She married my ex, had kids with him, and has stuck by him through his destroying their finances. Then 3 weeks ago, he was arrested and my sister found out the guy who was letting her and the kids stay was no longer okay, and so she called family members. My aunt told her that my parents were out of town and she should go to their house. My parents were on vacation and my sister lives 3 states from our parents, and apparently I'm right in the middle. She called our aunt to say she couldn't find a place she could afford overnight, so aunt gave her my address and told her to stay with me. She showed up. I shut the door. She called aunt called me and told me the story. I refused to let them stay. Aunt reasoned it was just for one night, but I stuck to my word. Aunt ended up paying for a place for them to stay. By the time my parents got home, sister was there and nobody had told them. Then my saying no turned into the debate of the whole family. My siblings, the ones I still talk to, all said that I should never have been a place she would even dare show up at. One of them also refused to let her stay overnight, so they were not afraid to stand up for me. My parents say they understand. They just hated that my sister's kids were upset at not having anywhere to go at night, and that the place they ended up at was scary. They told me they understood. They just wished I could have found some way to love her kids and give them a place to sleep at least. But they also know I never met them and were strangers to each other and them to my husband and kids. Other members of the family are not seeing it that way though, and I have been told I should be ashamed of myself, that I'm hateful, and that they hope I need to beg her for something one day and she leaves me in the dust too. And my kids. According to my siblings, she has been saying how angry she is that I didn't give her kids a place to stay, and she has apparently called me a heartless witch. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Oh no, your sister, who is such a stand-up person that she slept with your fiancé, thinks you are a bad person. Who cares what she thinks? Not the a-hole. Why has no one mentioned the aunt is the real villain here? Opie is not the a-hole, but she sure is. Other members of the family are not seeing it that way, and I have been told I should be ashamed of myself. So the aunt is not only the a-hole, but I almost wonder if there can be legal action that can be taken due to the usually blatant privacy violation of giving her address to an estranged and not wanted ex-sister. Not the a-hole. Of course not the a-hole. Your sister seems to make terrible choices all the time. Marrying your ex, leaving her home in a hurry, having 3 kids and no money to spend the night. None of this is your problem or responsibility. I don't think she had much choice in leaving the house. It wasn't hers or my ex's, and they weren't staying there for a very long at that point. But that's what happens when someone makes you lose your home. She had a choice in who she married, how she got into her situation, and myriad other decisions between marriage and moving. This is all on her, even if it's her idiot husband. Thank God you got away from that mess. That got them kicked out. She chose him, so she bears blame for her situation. Imagine being so naive, or such an a-hole. You think screwing your sister's fiancé, then marrying and having kids with him, will work out. The sister isn't sorry at all, judging by how she is weaponizing her kids to better suit her poor me narrative. The aunt who gave her Opie's address and ended up buying her a hotel room could have bought the damn room in the first place. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom I won't talk to my half-siblings until they can apologize? I, 19 female, lost my dad when I was 6. My mom and him didn't have the best marriage, so she was dating again 6 months after he died and met her current husband 11 months after his passing. She introduced him to me right away, and she did ask me how I felt and wanted to know how I was doing, but nothing I said really made a difference to the pace of their relationship. They started having babies right away and have 6 children together, ranging from the age of 11 down to 4. The biggest problem here is with the 11, 10, and 9-year-olds. They're kids, so again, I could be a huge A for this, but here goes. Around 3 years ago, the 3 half-siblings I mentioned started telling me to call their dad Dad. That's what it started with. He's not Jim, he's Dad, kind of thing. I explained to them that he was their dad, but not my dad, and I showed them photos of my dad. After a while of that, they told me it was mean to not let him be my dad, though since he was the best one and he wanted to be my dad too. I told them that didn't change who my dad was. I asked them how they would feel if he died and mom brought home a new dad. They told me that wouldn't happen, / that was wrong, / different and all sorts of stuff. I had brought it up to mom and their dad. Mom told me I should talk to them a few times, but they continued coming to me. When we had a virtual graduation party for me last year, my then 10-year-old half-sister, now 11-year-old, corrected me in front of everyone for saying how I was sad Dad had missed this part of my life. She told me he didn't miss it. He was right here. My mom tried to shush her, but she shut me down a second time. Other stuff has happened in between, and then 2 months ago, I was briefly home for a week, and during that time they were going crazy on correcting me. Even had a younger ones copying them. And then they told me they were glad my dad was dead, and that it wasn't important. He was dumb, and I was dumb for missing him and not adopting their dad. Some of what they said felt very mature, and like something someone else had said. But then they just kept repeating over and over that they were glad my dad was dead, and it made them happy. I used to call home to talk to them a few times a month, and now I haven't. And my mom called me to get me to, but I told her I won't talk to them until I get a real apology, and until their behavior changes. She told me I need to be an understanding adult about this. I told her no. I told her the fastest way for me to never have anything to do with them again is to hear over a long period of time that they're glad my dad is dead and that my dad doesn't matter. She told me even that it would be extreme. I told her I don't love them more than my dad, and hearing them talk like that about him would fracture our relationship beyond repair. I told her 3 years of dealing with this stuff for it to get worse is too much. She and her husband called me out for being wrong about this, so I'm here to ask. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, Jim has, over the course of the time I have known him, tried to get me to call him dad. He pushed it a few times over the years, but would bring it up regularly. But I never wanted to. He will never be my father. I don't ever see the day where I love him either. I've had issues with him because of how often he brought it up and the pushing, but there's no fixing that now. Not the a-hole, but your mom and Jim sure are for not nipping this in the bud when it started. Saying they're just kids only means they'll grow up thinking this kind of harassing and bullying behavior is okay. Likely because at least Jim is behind this, and either the mother knows and has done nothing or she's behind it as well. The kids didn't come to this conclusion on their own. While kids are a lot more switched on than we often give them credit for, this is straight up manipulation from a parent. Given her mother is trying to get Opie to be a doormat under the guise of being the adult, she's trying to manipulate Opie so the mother can go back to getting what she wants and ignoring Opie's emotional needs. All frankly points to the mother being as guilty as Jim. I'll be shocked if mother isn't behind it, seeing as she already let Opie know her marriage to her dad was not the best. She obviously has no love lost for her ex, and would likely want him completely removed from existence, including all memories. Exactly this. These kids would have absolutely accepted that Opie has a different father to them, and it would be completely normal to them had they had no outside interference telling them otherwise. Both Jim and Mom have to have been in their ear all this time, trying to manipulate Opie through her siblings. And even if, on the slightest off chance that didn't happen, Mom should have been the one correcting them from the very beginning, Opie should never have had to correct them on their own. It is a parent's job to correct their children when they're doing something wrong and hurtful. It's clear as day that both Mom and Jim condone and encourage this behavior to pressure Opie to try to make her forget her dad, which is completely asinine behavior. I really feel for Opie. I cannot imagine people trying to tell me my mom, who died when I was the same age as Opie when her dad died, was bad and they were glad she was dead. Just that right there should have gotten those kids a very stern talking to, at the absolute least. You don't say stuff like that to people. Ever. Oh wow. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Not the a-hole. They might be kids, but they're old enough to know it's not right to tell someone you're glad their dad is dead. That's really mean and nasty and hurtful. Have you spoken with her dad about it? It might mean more coming from him if he tells them to stop. Assuming, of course, he doesn't also want you to call him dad. I had a whole part about him that I had to take out. But yeah, I have issues with him because he really wanted me to call him dad, and has brought it up so many times and pushed it a few times as well since I've known him. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdaughter to not bother coming to our house for school this year? I, 28 female, talked to my stepdaughter, 16 female, a few months before summer started and asked if she could babysit her siblings for the summer, since me and her father both work, and since I'm pregnant, all the extra money is needed. She said no because she has already made plans for the summer and she would rather not babysit the whole summer. But if I need help every once in a while, I could text her. I told her no because it's a full-time thing and I need her every day. A week or so later, I find out that she's babysitting her aunt's kids for the summer, and when I ask her why she lied, she said that her aunt is paying her and helping her learn Spanish. She's half Puerto Rican. She also said that her aunt is taking her to Puerto Rico and she wanted to get more in touch with her culture. I told her that she should always choose family over money, and now I know that having her fun time is worth more than spending time with her family, and don't even bother coming to living with us for school. She left me on read. I'd only texted my husband during Father's Day and on her sibling's birthday. School started and she hasn't come over once since the whole time when she would usually come every weekend, nor have my other stepkids since they only come when she comes over. My husband is now mad at me, blaming me for driving his kids away from him, but my kids keep asking when she is coming over. Am I the a-hole for telling my stepdaughter to not bother coming to school with us this year? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole. Your stepdaughter doesn't exist to provide free childcare for you for a whole summer. Stop being salty that she chooses the person that values her enough to pay her. How are you surprised that your manipulative threats didn't work? Heck, even when I babysat my siblings, my parents paid me because it's a job. It's a job, and not an easy one. You're the a-hole. Isn't her aunt family? Aunt versus wicked stepmother? Sounds like she did choose family. And who pays for babysitting, engages in mutual beneficial exchange, invests in exposing her niece to culture and travel that is meaningful to her niece, or a stepmom that is pregnant and can't afford childcare and wants a full-time free sitter. Damn, hard to choose. Yes, you're the a-hole like the rest. But how do you figure she lied? She said she made plans. You don't have to know what those plans are. And how is her aunt not family? You're all over the place here, OP. Her mom posted pictures of her on Facebook with her thanking her sister for connecting her daughter with her roots. And in the comments they were talking about if she had to babysit on the weekend, because her mom wants to take her to school shopping that weekend. Those were her plans. Were you expecting this babysitting for free? Based on all the extra monies needed, I'm going to guess yes. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that my sister canceled our plans? I, 18 female, was supposed to celebrate my birthday the other day by just hanging out with my younger sister Kate, 16 female. We made plans earlier in the week to go to this movie I wanted to see and get dinner afterwards. It's normal for my sister and I to spend our birthdays with each other because our dad, who we live with, has never been the celebration type. So as soon as my sister and I could drive, we just started celebrating on our own. On the day off, I got dressed and everything because I thought my sister and I were still going through with the plans we made. But she came into my room and told me that she was going to her friend's house because it was his birthday, and they were having a party. I tried not to look hurt about it because it's understandable that she'd want to hang out with her friends at a party more than she'd want to hang out with me at a movie theater, watching something she isn't interested in. I told her to have a good time and just kinda sat on my bed for a while. Our mom FaceTimed me a little while later and asked why I was still in my room if the movie had started already. I told her that Kate and I weren't going to the movie anymore and that Kate was at her friend's house celebrating his birthday. My mom hung up a bit after that and I ended up buying myself a cake and eating it in my room while watching TV on a group call with some friends. When my sister got home later that night, she immediately came up to my room and told me how petty it was for me to have told our mom on her, and that she's tired of always having to hang out with me instead of having a good time with her friends. I didn't know she felt like that. I don't really go out often, so when I do, she's with me. If I had known she didn't like hanging out with me, I wouldn't have offered all the time. I told her that I didn't realize she wanted the party with her friends to be a secret, but she rolled her eyes and went to her room. She told our dad what happened, and he got on to me for getting back at my sister for canceling on me. He said that I should have known what would happen if I told our mom that Kate had other plans, and that I'm in the wrong for snitching. I really didn't mean to do that, but I guess the impact of what I did matters more than the intention. One of my friends said that I didn't do anything wrong and that my sister should be apologizing to me, but I don't know. Not the a-hole. This is pretty tangled. Starting from the top. If Kate wanted to go out with her friends rather than with you, she should have said so instead of lying to you and changing plans at the last moment. Your mom, I think, was being a little clever. She probably suspected that your sister went out with friends when she wasn't supposed to and she called you to verify. She also probably suspected you needed a little comfort after your sister ditched you. Two birds, one stone. Your mom got on your sister's case for lying about what she was doing and for going out with friends without clearing it with the parental units. This, by the way, was a consequence of your sister's behavior. Your father is also out of line. He is trying to tell you that you should have helped your sister deceive your mother in order that your sister escape consequences for her actions. People lying to you does not make you an a-hole. People hurting you does not make you an a-hole. People expecting you to lie to cover up their a-holery does not make you an a-hole. You are not the a-hole here. You are, if anything, the victim. Out of everyone here, I think you and your mother are in the right. Everyone else misbehaved. Not the a-hole. If your dad accuses you of snitching, then he is admitting that what your sister did is wrong, and he is trying to hide it. Your mom asked you a question, and you answered. You did nothing wrong. Your sister is the total a-hole here. Leaving you on your birthday to hang out with her friends is a horrible thing to do. Not to mention she snitched on her for telling their mother. Dad is the a-hole here too. He didn't do anything for his daughter's 18th birthday but came to yell at her because she slighted his favorite child. Though my best guess is that he got an earful from mom for allowing this to go down. Am I the a-hole for evicting my niece for being irresponsible? Here's some backstory. I, female 30, let my niece, female 20, live in the basement of my house while she's in university until she can find a place of her own. I am married to my husband, male 30, and we have one child, female 3. We live in a decently large house with a full basement. At Christmas 2 years ago, my sister, female 45, announced that her daughter, let's call Ella, had been accepted to the university of her dreams. I just so happened to live a few bus stops away from this school, so naturally, as a good aunt, I decided to put the offer for her to live with us while she went to school there. I had a few conditions, obviously, but nothing too over the top. 1. Pay rent. The rent isn't expensive either. It's a lot cheaper than most other places in our city. 2. If she's going to be staying with us, she needs to have a job. I plan to move out as soon as she's financially able. 3. If she's having friends over, she should make sure we're okay with it and just to keep her party decently quiet since we do have a toddler. To be honest, she was a pretty good tenant. She paid rent on time, she was extremely good student. She even had dinner with us and offered to watch our daughter while we had date nights. Around her 20th birthday, she got a bit more irresponsible. She lost her job, which was a fairly well-paying job, meaning she stopped paying all rent. She became a lot louder, which as a student I wouldn't be too concerned about, but it was getting to the point where she would invite random people over for parties, and the neighbors would call the police for the noise. I hit my limit when I found out she was kicked out of the school she worked so hard to get into. I called my sister to ask if she knew anything about all of this, and she for some reason was angry and yelled, "Who cares? She's just living her life," and hung up. As expected, I was furious, so I did my little snooping and I called her old manager to figure out why she was fired. Turns out she was dealing on the job. I have no idea why or where she would have gotten any of that, but she did. So I emailed the dean of the school she attended and apparently, she just stopped showing to her classes and basically failed. I took it upon myself to talk to my husband and her father since my sister wanted nothing to do with any of this. I wrote up a little letter telling her she had to move out within 2 weeks or I'll be removing her stuff myself and she'll be basically homeless. The day off, her mother showed up to my door, screaming at me, and her daughter hadn't even packed anything up. My husband called the police and they removed her. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My apologies for not making this clear at all. I should have mentioned that I have connection with the dean. Nothing illegal was going on between us in any way. The dean of the school and I used to date in high school, but decided to be friends instead. Not that this is important, but that's why we had been in contact. He knows my family and vice versa, which is the only reason I ask anything about our school issues. I had emailed him and we met for lunch, caught up and discussed the issue. I swear nothing was illegal in our part. And for those asking, no, I'm not from the US. Now for the top comments. Why do you get to tell someone what to do? Jesus didn't make you. God. People are allowed to have different ideas and wants and needs. You have no right judging anyone, especially a family member who you made homeless. Good on you. What an awesome person you must be. Honest question. Would you allow someone doing dangerous and illegal activity to live in your home with your husband and child? Me doing that gave her the ability for something bad to happen to all of us. I don't even know why religion was brought into this, like at all. But honestly, would you allow something like that to go on in your home with your family, but decide it's okay because God says not to judge? I have a 28-year-old son who uses ice, so I practice what I preach. So you're a failure as a parent and are projecting. Not a-hole. You are under no obligation to house a dealer. She broke all the rules you set for her. Did she and her mother really expect you wouldn't take steps to remove her from your house? Your first priority is to protect your child and your home. You did what you had to do. I wouldn't want a dealer around my children either. Hard pass. Your sister was probably ashamed, which is why she yelled at you. Understandable, but still a-hole-ish behavior. You are definitely not a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for shouting at my father and calling my stepmother a gold digger for kicking me out? Here is some background context before I 20 go further. My father, 48, was never present in my early life, as he and my mother divorced when I was very young and he moved 6 hours away for work. But eventually we rekindled and were in good terms in my mid-teens. Once I graduated, my father asked if I would like to come live with him, my stepmother 28, and my older sister 24 to make up for the fact that I never really had a chance to see him growing up. I was hesitant as I had landed a very high-paying job straight out of school and was also planning on moving in with a few friends. My older sister had been living with them since she was 19 and said she'd like to have me around, so I caved, and just after my 19th birthday I quit my job, canceled my plans to move away with my friends, and packed all of my stuff into my car. To be honest, it was great living with him, but I struggled settling into the new town, making friends, getting a job, etc. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago and I've found a job, have made friends, but dirt poor because I've spent all my money on a trip to Spain with said friends. 4 days before I leave, my sister suddenly moves out, as one of her friend's roommates moved away, so she very quickly in the space of a few days moved in with her friend. All good. I go on my trip for 2 weeks and came back 3 days ago as of writing this post. The first day I was back, my father and stepmother were very nice and welcoming, picking me up from the airport, asking how it all went, wanting to see pictures. But after having dinner, they said that they wanted to talk to me about something serious. They sat me down and explained that while they really like having me around, they loved having their own space and house to themselves more, and that they wanted me out in 3 weeks. They said they'd help me move my stuff, and that I'd always be allowed to stop by. I was shocked and very hurt. I brought up that they wanted me to move in with them, and that my older sister had been living with them the last 4 to 5 years. We went back and forth about an hour, arguing until I reached my boiling point. I just started shouting and told them how hurt I was, how it was BS that I moved away from home and lost a great job and opportunity just for this. My stepmother said that I was too old to be living with them anyways, and that I was acting like a leech when I pay them rent and buy my own food. So I told her that it was ironic coming from a gold digger. After that, they told me to pack my things and leave, and that I wasn't welcome back, which I did. I'm now staying with my sister until I can find somewhere to stay. They haven't talked to me since, and my sister agrees that it was messed up for them to do. I get you eventually have to move out of home, but inviting me to live with you when I'm doing well, and then kicking me out when I'm broke, feels like such a betrayal to me. So am I the a-hole for how I reacted? Not the a-hole. They told you they wanted you to come live with them, so you quit your job to do so, and then they told you that actually they don't want you to live there the day you got there? That's super messed up. If they can't see that there's some huge cognitive dissonance going on in their heads. Sorry I wasn't clear enough. I've lived with them pretty much a full year. 2 months after my 19th birthday, I moved in till 3 days ago, which was nearly a month after my 20th birthday. Sorry if that was confusing, but thank you. I'm not an expert on the matter, but that may be worth speaking to an attorney. It sounds a lot like the situation turned into an illegal eviction. A consultation would be free and you would possibly be eligible for legal aid if a lawyer wouldn't take the case on a consignment basis, where they would only collect money out of winnings and get nothing if you lose. Not a-hole. They are terrible people. Is there any chance of getting the old job offer rekindled? It won't hurt to try. If not, find another job. Preferably where you lived with your mom. See if you can move back home. Save money so that you always have contingency money. Good luck. I'm thinking this may be the plan, but I doubt I could get the same job as COVID was what really opened that opportunity. Thank you. It is worth a try. If you reach out to the company, first inquire. If the answer is no, then explain the circumstances. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to compromise with my dad and stepmom? I, 16 female, I'm the only child in my household who does not call the adults in our home mom and dad. I have 2 bio siblings ages 14 male and 13 female. And I have 4 step siblings ages 19 female, 14 male, 14 male, and 12 female. Mine and my siblings' mom died when I was 5. The oldest step sibling never knew her father. My other 3 step siblings' dad still plays a role in their lives, but was never big on the oldest, and eventually my stepmom left him for that reason. My siblings call stepmom mom, since they only know her as mom. Oldest stepsister calls my father dad because she never had one, and he was willing. Younger 3 call him that, because they are not fond of their bio father, but I have never called my stepmom mom. I was only 5 when dad and her moved in together, 5 months after my mom died. She's okay, but to me, I do not love her like that, and I do not want her to be my mom. I have some memories of my mom and find it disrespectful. She's told me before that it's never disrespectful, and if I had a baby one day, wouldn't I want them to never be without a mom? I told them they'd always have a mom whether I'm dead or alive, and I wouldn't want them calling someone else mom. She told me I was too young to get it, so I should just follow the flow of the household and start calling her mom. My dad and stepmom went to a meeting with my school about my IEP, and there it was brought up that she was my stepmom because I tell teachers at school in my aid. Always did, but I guess it brought up for some reason and they hated it. So they sat me down and said if I won't call her mom, then they will try to accept it, though they think she has earned that title after all these years. But they said at least stop saying dad and stepmom and start saying parents. I told them no, that when I say parents, I mean mom and dad, not dad and stepmom. Dad told me I was being a difficult little turd. And why do I insist on punishing my stepmom for mom's death? I said it's not punishing her. It's doing what feels right to me, just like the other kids do what feels right to them. He told me he doesn't care about what I feel is right. They say what is right as the adult. Stepmom said my unwillingness to work with them and compromise drives her crazy. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. No step-parent has the right to demand a title from you. That's earned. I love my father's wife, but they married after I was grown and I've never lived with them. She's never been any kind of mother to me. I just call her by her first name and we're cool. My little brother was still a preteen when they got married, and he calls her stepmom even though he lived with them full time. She's fine with that too. I also have to ask, since you mentioned IEP, are you on the autistic spectrum? If so, they should know that many people who have autism find it very hard to say something they feel is untruthful. You don't feel like she's your mom, therefore calling her your mom isn't a truth. And why would you lie to people? She has the right to have hurt feelings if she has raised you and treated you the same as her other children. But hurt feelings still don't give her the right to tell you to lie. Her feelings are not more important than your feelings, and as the adult, she should understand that. I'm not. My IEP is for speech and learning disabilities. My feelings were always kind of pushed to last, mostly because mine differed from others. I think that's how it goes when you're the only one who feels different to everyone else. I'm mostly used to it, but this stuff is stressful. Okay, that was just an added layer of them being wrong if you were on a spectrum. They're still wrong anyway. I understand how you feel. It's horrible when people we care about ignores our feelings. They're asking you to respect their feelings at the same time they're disrespecting your feelings. Respect goes both ways. Not a-hole and your father telling you he doesn't care is just so horrible. Even if they forced you to call her what they want, would it even count if it's not coming from the heart? They should be happy you are honest with them about your feelings. I think they'd feel like it's better than me never doing it. Maybe they even think saying it enough would make me mean it eventually. Last story. Am I the a-hole for helping pay off one of my daughter's student loans and not the others? I'm currently being given a cold shoulder by both my youngest daughter and wife over this. so I thought I'd get an outside opinion. Both my two daughters graduated from similarly costing universities. I had a school fund set up for both of them, but it didn't cover everything. They both, after graduating, had about $60,000 in student loan debt. They also both were lucky to find jobs in their fields a few months after graduating, with similar salaries of about $55,000 a year. However, they took vastly different approaches to their debt. My eldest for the last 3 years have lived extremely frugally, and outside of basic needs and bills, all her extra money goes into paying her debt off. My youngest, on the other hand, asked if she could live at home until she gets her loans paid off. But she still only pays the minimum required to send every month and spend the rest of her money on herself. Now, the issue started a few days ago. My eldest called me all excited because her loan debt was down to $500 and she would be able to finally pay it off when she next gets paid. We spoke for a bit more, and after the call ended, I decided to surprise her by sending her $1,000 to pay off the rest of her debt, and so she could finally have some money to do something for herself for once. When I was talking to my wife and youngest daughter over dinner about how impressed I was that she paid it off so fast, my youngest started yelling about how I've never given her money towards her loans. I explained that while I'm not directly paying them, I'm still helping her by letting her live at home rent-free, and she could be closer to paying it off if she spent less on things she doesn't need. After screaming and crying to me a bit more, she stormed off and is staying at her boyfriend's currently. My wife thinks that I should promise to give her some money each month to help her pay the loan off faster so we can keep the peace at home. But I don't think I should reward her for nothing. Not a-hole. Just say you'll give her $1,000 when her debt is down to $500. Problem solved. Exactly. This would be fair, even though you have done way more for the youngest by letting her stay, hence less expenses. At the rate she's paying off her loans, he has about 25 plus years to save. Not a-hole. Technically, by allowing her to live at home with you this whole time, you've probably paid more towards your youngest loans than your eldest anyway, when you take into account extra groceries, power, and water. OP should give the youngest a gift certificate of the value of the food/housing every month that says it's been gifted. Then, to be really fair, should give the oldest that much in cash. I mean, petty, and I don't really recommend this step. Not a-hole. The amount of money she has saved by not having to pay rent is more than the $1,000 you gave to your eldest daughter. Your youngest daughter may not see it that way, but I think you've been more than fair and reasonable. OP, many people on this sub has solved this type of issue instantly by creating a spreadsheet with cost comparison. Your wife might be a little shocked as well. It's so easy for rent-free to get overlooked in the grand scheme of things because people see it as living with their parents. Does your daughter pay for her groceries, the utilities, internet? These are things your oldest is also paying for, not just her own rent. Be sure to include a whole breakdown and even the $1,000 credit so she can see that it's been applied for fairness. Am I the a-hole for saying no to picking up my son's half-sister from school? I am a single mom of 2 boys ages 11 and 10. Their father and I divorced 5 years ago after I learned he was cheating on me. He got her pregnant, either right before he told me and that was why he confessed, or right after. But our divorce was not an easy one. He wanted to stay friends when I could not even look at him after what he did. He and I were together for over 13 years. He was also a friend before he was my boyfriend/husband, and to have him betrayed me like that and treat me as he had was awful. He married as a fair partner. They had a daughter within months of our separation, followed by a son after the divorce/their marriage. Last year, they lost a baby, which led to the discovery that his wife had cancer. What followed was a lot of fighting between the two of us again. He wanted me to help him and his wife out. He said their children, who are currently 5 and 3, needed family beyond just him and his wife. His own family disowned him for our divorce as they were extremely religious and she has no family. I told him it would be over my dead body I would help him. He argued that it was for the children, and if not for his kids with her, then for our boys, who could see their family heal and be one. I told him he stopped any chance of that happening when he cheated on me. What I did not expect was for him to tell his daughter's school to call me when she got sick. He was at work at a time and couldn't leave apparently because he had already missed a lot of work due to his wife, and she was home recovering from chemo. I got a call, was asked if I would pick her up, and I said no. Several hours later, I got reamed on the phone by him for leaving his sick child at school when I knew they had nobody. This is when he told me how he couldn't leave and how his wife was resting. I told him the babysitter for his son should have been called over me. He told me he was in daycare and that I should be ashamed because she was a sick child who was going through a lot, and I could have helped. He told me he hoped our sons are going to be ashamed of me. They aren't, and I argued back with him over the phone at a time. But I guess part of me does feel bad for the child. My sons also sensed an atmosphere while they were with their dad after the incident when they talked about me, and I hate that for them. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He has the nerve to try to manipulate you after cheating? Those aren't your kids and not your problem. I also feel bad for the girl, but it's his mess to solve. Give an inch, he'll take a mile. Say no now to prevent future problems. That is my concern. I do not want to be part of those two children's lives in any big way. And if I say yes to one thing, then it gets harder to say no again. And that establishes more of a relationship than I ever want with them. Your ex is trying to use your basic decency to manipulate you. No responsible parent puts down an emergency contact without getting confirmation by the contact. This is all on him. As sad and unfortunate a situation as it is for his children, you have the right to refuse to be their carer. He put his daughter in this position, not you. He is to blame for any discomfort she may have experienced. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. He is lining you up to be a mom to their kids after his wife dies. His behavior is disgusting. Stick to your guns. Oh yes, just wait until he wants you to take all the kids during your custody time. Draw a firm line in the sand now. Yes, this. There was a post on here of a man that cheated on his wife, divorced her, and when the affair partner and mother of his other child died, he insisted on a poster, his ex-wife, let the daughter call her mom. He even sent that OP videos of the little girl crying for her mommy. Not the a-hole. What kind of fool lists his ex-wife as emergency contact for his affair child? The audacity of him to get mad at you. The only children of his you need to care for are the ones you share with him. Do not let him tell you otherwise. Too bad he tanked his own life, but that's not your problem at all. If he can't handle the situation he got himself into, he needs to figure out a way to get himself through it. You're not responsible for his mistakes. While it's unfortunate his wife has cancer, you're still not obligated to help him at all with anything, except as related to your children. He can apologize and make amends with family, or go out and make friends and get support that way. It's not your job. The type of a-hole who assumes that once the affair partner, current wife, passes or is placed in some form of care, expects his ex to take him back and go back to playing happy family. He's basically trying to get OP lined up as the new mommy to his kids with his affair partner once the affair partner is no longer in the picture. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom and sister to pay our bills if they agree my wife should be able to be a stay-at-home? My 28 male, wife 31 female, has recently started to express interest in being a stay-at-home wife to prep for being a stay-at-home mom. We don't have kids and haven't been trying, and before getting married, we talked about kids and work/home arrangement. And we agreed that we'd both work prior to and once we had kids, and agreed we'd take turns with the stay-at-home portion for the first year or two after potential kids were born, then both back to work. Now she wants to do away with that. It wants to be a stay-at-home wife until we have kids and then be a stay-at-home mom. I never want that. I never wanted that. And I made that clear from the start when we got serious. I enjoy my job a lot, but my salary can't sustain a family. And I don't want to go back to school and change careers like she wants me to make it happen. I don't want to take up a second job either, knowing I'd still be doing half the housework and childcare. Not that that's a bad thing. Whereas both my mom and her parents are local, should have plenty of help during the day and able to get downtime. We had dinner at my mother's a couple days ago with my sister and her kids. While we were there, my wife goes, "Your son's being mean. He won't let me be a stay-at-home mom." First, my family took this as she's pregnant and got excited. So I had to tell them that wasn't it, that she just wants to be a stay-at-home. It turned into this 3-on-1 conversation about how I should let her stay at home if that's what she really wants, and I should be taking care of her and finding a way to make this happen for her. Finally, I go, "Would you two help her with the house whenever she needs it?" Of course. That's what family's for, especially when you start having kids will help. Cool. Keep that same energy and help me pay all our bills and every other expense to upkeep our current quality of life. if you feel so strongly that she should get to stay home. They did not like that and told me I was being overdramatic. My mom called me stubborn and told me to find corners to cut to afford everything on my salary and drop things like streaming services, some of my hobbies, go from 2 cars to 1, etc. We laughed and my wife wasn't too happy on the way home. She says I was out of line for saying that to my mom and sister, especially since she thinks I was serious. Was I wrong for telling my mom and sister to pay our bills if they wanted me to go along with it? Not today, Hall, because you didn't bring it up to them. Your wife did. She was being manipulative and you called her on it. Be careful. I could see an, oops, we're pregnant, now we have to stay home moment coming. Haha, glad it wasn't just me seeing it. Not the a-hole. I've been here and the divorce will be horrible once you have children. Get out now. She's shown her true colors. This is the warning sign. Seriously, divorce this woman. Not the a-hole. Or at least get a vasectomy. I agree. End this now. Being stay-at-home used to mean all husbands needed to do at home was mow the lawn, shovel snow, and take cars in for service. If her expectation is you will be doing half the housework and childcare when at home, don't come at me. I believe in involved parents of all genders, just making a point here. Plus working 2 jobs, or going to school while working to get a higher salary job you don't even want. When the agreement was you would take turns being stay-at-home after kids, that would be a big nope for me. I found out after I was with someone for almost 2 years that he expected me to quit work, be a stay-at-home mom, plus have way more kids than I could mentally and physically handle. If you can do that, great, but it would have both broken me and been unfair to the kids. I thought he loved me for who I was, but it turned out he expected marriage to magically transform me. Not the a-hole. Good luck, Opie. Take care of you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister to stop coming to me to complain about what my husband says to her? My female 31 sister, female 35, Claire, has struggled with her inability to have kids for years. She gets all kinds of questions from people about when she'll have kids, but somehow she focuses on what my husband says about the topic and complains about how he constantly makes backhanded comments about her inability to have kids. She once claimed he told her women in their 30s plus have lesser chances to bear children. Or that one time she claimed he mocked her infertility by calling her garden barren, just like her. I admit that my husband is the type to dish it out, but her complaining seemed excessive because she never liked him anyway. Last week, we got together for dinner at my parents' house. My sister came downstairs later while my mom and I were in the kitchen and told me that my husband suggested she backs out of her IVF treatment and find a better use for the money when she announced wanting to try IVF. She went on about how insensitive and hurtful his words were. I felt upset that I told her she was right to be mad, but she needed to stop coming to me complaining about him as if he was my son, and try to speak to him instead. She snapped at me saying she'll already talk to him, but since he's my husband and I brought him into the family, then I should be the one to handle him. I told her reasoning didn't make any sense, but she called me selfish and cruel just like him. It got so overwhelming when my mom sided with her, even going as far as to say I was enabling him. I left and went home. My husband said my sister is just being too sensitive because he was just giving his honest opinion when she brought up the IVF, and said that if she has an issue with him, he should tell him to his face. He also said that she's probably looking for an excuse to pick an argument with me, and that I was innocent and had nothing to do with this despite her trying to involve me. Neither she nor my parents are speaking to me as of now. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. Tell your husband to keep his mouth shut. My husband is the type to dish it out. No. Your husband is the a-hole that thinks it's appropriate to comment on your sister's body and reproductive issues. What an awful inconsiderate man you married, and you don't seem too far behind him. He is also the type to believe his opinion is relevant and that other people care to hear it. Hopefully someone clarifies to him that this is not the case, and since he is neither the sister's financial planner nor fertility doctor, he should sit back down. This right here. It's one thing, to be honest, if someone asks for your opinion. It's an entirely different thing to offer your opinion when it's neither wanted nor needed. My uncle is like this. If he's read a book or heard a podcast, he's an expert. Even if it's my field of study with advanced degrees in peer-reviewed publications. I'll never forget the look on his face when I said, well, that's a common misconception among people who only have a superficial understanding of the issue. If you want to dig deeper, I can send you some articles. My father kept it together but then left all the way home in the car because it had been years since someone stunned his younger brother like that. You're the a-hole. Fertility issues are incredibly personal, and your husband has absolutely no place dishing it out, as you call it, over something so personal and sensitive. And yes, she is sensitive. It's a sensitive topic, and you should be absolutely ashamed of your husband's abhorrent behavior. He is being a cruel, vindictive bully who needs to learn that every little thought that passes through his bully brain doesn't need to come out of his mouth. Furthermore, him specifically targeting your sister says he actually wants to be cruel and hurtful to her, and you enable him. Now don't come to me about his behavior. Why shouldn't she? You married the oaf. He's your responsibility. Or are you just happy that when your sister is around, he's not being a cruel, vindictive idiot to you? Could also be that is the kind of crap Opie wants to say herself, but she knows that their family will be a lot less tolerant of that nonsense coming from her than her husband. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying my sister-in-law is not my nephew and niece's mom? We have some background here. My sister-in-law is my brother's second wife, and she's the stepmother to his 3 kids ages 17, 15, and 14. My brother, Sam, lost his first wife when the kids were very small and remarried quickly, in part because he did not want to be alone, and also because he did not want his kids to grow up without a mom. They have been married for 10 years now, and the 3 kids in question do not call sister-in-law mom. They do not want anyone else to call her their mom either. She is the mother to my 2 nephews with my brother, but the discussion in question is regarding the older 3. My brother and sister-in-law went to therapy with the kids out of concern that children so young were so resistant to calling a new mother figure mom, someone who loved them and was genuinely there wanting the best for them. They ended up blaming their maternal family for the lack of title for sister-in-law and attempted to cut them out of the children's lives when the maternal family refused to tell the kids they wanted them to call sister-in-law mom because she was mom now. The courts were brought in, and that put a stop to removing contact. Over the years, the kids have been corrected many times. There have also been many punishments given out because the kids rebel against sister-in-law and have said things to hurt her. It's basically one big fight at their house. The rest of my family are kind of mixed in all this, and some feel like Sam and sister-in-law are wrong to push, but others believe something is amiss because the kids have not mellowed out towards sister-in-law at all and still refuse to have anyone speak about her as their mom. I think they also believe their maternal side of the family are to blame and that they believe they are wrong for not encouraging it. I have spoken to my nephew and nieces, so I know their mom's family have never said anything. What they do is talk about their mom and share her memory with them, and it's led to a connection forming through the maternal family. I think it's unfair to keep pushing them to call sister-in-law mom, and I think a focus should have been put on giving them a happy home life versus pushing for something the kids have expressed they do not want. A few days ago, Sam and sister-in-law were talking to our family about the kids going back to school and how my 14-year-old niece corrected the school admin who referred to sister-in-law as her mom. Sister-in-law talked about how upset she was and how she doesn't understand how the kids can still be so wrong on this. Sam even said he wanted to pull his hair out. I suggested, and not for the first time, that they should come to terms with the reality of things. Sam replied the reality is sister-in-law is their mom and has been for 10 years. I told them the reality is sister-in-law is not their mom. She's their stepmother, and you can't force feelings on that to change. I am now considered the a-hole. They said I only hurt sister-in-law more and rubbed her face into rejection by saying it. Am I the a-hole? I read stories like this and think, how do these people not realize that by focusing on the title and trying to force a relationship which erases the deceased parent, they are nuking any chance of forming a good, loving step-parent relationship? Not the a-hole. I'm glad that these kids have someone on their dad's side of the family who understands. Your brother and his wife may be surprised in a few years when you have a better relationship with these 3 young adults than they do. I think sometimes people forget that kids, while young and not always knowing the best, are people with their own thoughts and feelings. Sometimes people see kids as people who can be totally molded, including their own feelings, but just like adults, those can be hard to develop towards certain people for a variety of reasons. And trying to force something before they're ready will cause them to dig in their heels, much as it would for an adult. Had they not insisted upon it so early and so aggressively, and instead allowed the kids time to develop a maternal bond, it might have happened naturally. Making it a point of contention cemented her position as stepmom in their hearts and minds forever. Am I the a-hole for showing a spreadsheet of everything I pay for and showing their dad doesn't pay for anything? Okay, I'm getting mixed opinions from this. We have 2 kids, 13 and 11. I'm not going to lie, we live a pretty frugal life. All the extra money I make goes into their college accounts or fun weekends. Dad has them once a month and is the fun parent. Can't get his child payments in, but willing to do a surprise trip to Kennywood. It's frustrating, all right. I try not to say anything bad about him, but he has been pushing the narrative that without him and the money he gives me, we wouldn't have the home. It's so false. And now the kids are going, well, dad pays for this. My last straw is when the kids told me that it's dad who pays for the home. So I pulled up my budget spreadsheet and includes all the stuff that he pays for. So child support, and he hasn't paid for the past 2 months. The kids were upset for being lied to, and the oldest got in an argument with him since she called to confirm. We got in an argument and he's calling me a jerk. My friends are split on this and I am wondering if I went too far. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The situation sucks, but your ex attacked. You were just defending yourself. So nope, not the a-hole. He is. The data will speak for itself. And that's why Opie's not a-hole. If she had gone on the attack and said nasty things about her ex, it would be a little more gray. But all they did was give the kids a basic, factual account of their budget breakdown, so they understood the financial situation and allowed them to form their own thoughts about the subject. This, kids are old enough for introductory personal finance 101, will serve them well in future. If he was actually lying and the kids were believing his lies, then absolutely unequivocally not the a-hole. Period. You almost had to do this. He doesn't look bad in their eyes because you exposed him. He looks bad because he lied to begin with, and because he created a situation that he lied about. To add to that, the kids deserve to know what they are dealing with in case they ever need support from him in the future. Honestly, they will either learn now, or they will learn when a kid asks for money for something very important in the future and have their hopes crushed. Better to learn now. Not the a-hole. The truth can hurt sometimes, but the truth is in the facts. As for the back child support you are owed, court order for garnishment would be in order. Working on that. Just want to tag on that my husband stayed quiet about his ex to his kids. He didn't want to say anything negative, didn't want to badmouth her. And that's generally true, but sometimes you gotta say the truth, especially when they're older. He never did, and now there are grown adults who believe that he did nothing to help them and that she was a saint when she was a cheater and want nothing to do with him. Don't make this mistake. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to raise my son's child as I raised my daughter's child? I, 57, have 2 kids, Erica, 24 female, and Dave, adopted, 25 male, with my husband, Liam, 62. When Erica was 16, she got pregnant and decided to keep her baby. I was very upset, as I felt a child would impact her future and she wasn't thinking of the consequences. However, after having her son, Adam, 8 male, she became more responsible, and my husband helped raise Adam while she did high school and part-time when she completed her degree. She now works and supports herself and Adam. Dave announced recently that he and Anna, 25 female, are expecting their first child, and this caused tension in our family. Erica is my daughter from my first marriage and is mixed race, while me, Liam, Anna, and Dave are white. Anna went to the same school as my kids and made comments about both Erica and Adam's heritage and shaming Erica for being a teen mom. Dave told us that Anna has grown as a person and that she has changed. But Erica refused to be around Anna spending holidays with her mom and was angry that Dave would have a relationship with Anna after what he did. Anna has apologized after that talk, but Erica feels the apology is insincere and too late, but does now attend family events and mostly ignores Anna, though will not allow Adam to be near her. I am struggling to balance both relationship with my kids. Anna and Dave recently invited us all to their gender reveal, and I thought this would be a good way to move forward as a family, and we all agreed to attend. After the gender reveal, Dave asked Liam and I for our car keys. Said he wanted to load some of the baby shower presents in our car. I was confused and asked why. Apparently, both he and Anna thought that like we helped raise Adam, we would help raise their new baby. So they wanted to load our car with some of the diaper/baby clothes for when we look after our new grandchild. We told them no, as we are too old now, and that they are both financially stable to look after the new baby. While we are happy to occasionally help out, they should be responsible for their own child, as they are old enough. Dave said that him and Anna have lots of student debt and can't afford to take time off and needed childcare more, as Erica got a single-parent grant to help pay tuition. They called me and Liam and Ferris raising a child is expensive now, and that we should help out. David said we ruined Anna's big day as an expecting mom, and that we should have at least said no in private. But thinks that at least for the first few years we should be hands-on grandparents. Dave also accused us of favoring Erica over him, even though we said the situations are both different. I am about to retire, and Liam and I have had plans for years about going back to our home country, which they both know. I would have said I wasn't right here, but even Erica thinks we are being too harsh on Dave and Anna. I'm thinking, what the heck did I just read? If Dave is old enough to not use protection, he sure as heck is old enough to raise his child. Both him and Anna. You are not the a-hole. The situations were vastly different. How could they even expect this of you? Same. Dave and Anna are grown adults who are financially stable and perfectly capable of raising a child, as Opie said. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how they justified Opie and husband basically raising their kid in their heads. I don't understand how two 25-year-old adults came to that conclusion. Opie's not a-hole. To add to this, they just assumed. If they really feel that this should be what the grandparents do to be fair, maybe sit down and ask if they'd be willing to do this before packing all the baby things in a grandparent's car. On one level, I'm hoping this is an unplanned pregnancy, because if it was planned and they didn't have this discussion before they started trying, it makes them even worse. Wow, entitled. Not a-hole. Any of the following reasons are enough on their own. Combined, it's an especially compelling case of not a-hole. 8 years have passed since you took on that role to support your daughter, and you're about to retire. David is at a very different stage of life to what Erica was. This also reads as though Erica was a single parent as well as still in school, correct me if I'm wrong, whereas David and Anna will raise their child together as employed humans at the adult variety. You have valid reasons to feel uncomfortable around David's wife, which could possibly complicate the arrangement. They knew you had plans to return to your home country for a period. And the main one? They didn't even ask. They hadn't even discussed how this would work with you. We should have at least said no in private. How about them asking in private? Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to try and keep my kids quiet so my sister-in-law could sleep? My sister-in-law, her husband, and their kid currently live with myself, my husband, and our 3 kids. Their house burnt down, and it's in the process of being rebuilt. They've been here 2 months. My sister-in-law works overnights 3 nights a week. Her husband doesn't work. I work from home, and my husband works 5 to 6 days a week installing docks. Now, even on the days that sister-in-law doesn't work, she insists that my kids remain quiet and don't make noise at all, because she will insist on sleeping until 4 to 5 p.m. after going to bed at 11 p.m. the night prior. She claims it's because her body can't handle the sleeping schedule, but she refused to switch to day shifts. I'm honestly freaking sick of trying to keep my kids quiet, literally all day and most of the afternoon, so she can sleep, while I'm trying to work on top of that. My son has ADHD and he is off the walls most of the time, so I'm constantly having to stop what I'm doing, work, to go and correct my kid for having fun in his own house. I told my husband this wasn't working and that we needed to sit down with the sister-in-law and tell her this isn't working out and come up with an alternative. So he sat her down yesterday and basically told her she has 3 options. Either buy noise-canceling headphones, put a camper in our property and sleep out there, or change her work schedule. Because I will not be telling my kids to be quiet from sunup till sundown anymore. She said she can't sleep with headphones, doesn't want to change her schedule due to the pay differential, and can't afford a camper. I basically told her those were her options, take it or leave it. Today I did not try to keep my kids quiet. I shouldn't have to in their home. Sister-in-law comes down complaining because she can't sleep, and I pretty much told her tough luck. I gave her options, and she refused all of them. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Beggars can't be choosers. You've taken her in after the fire, which is the decent thing to do, but it is her children's house first, and she needs to remember that. Keeping your kids quiet 24/7 for the indefinite future is a non-starter. Besides, when she gets tired enough, she'll sleep. Agreed. Also, some additional things that might help. Earplugs and white noise machine. There is a fourth option. They can live somewhere else. And why isn't her husband working? Is he a stay-at-home dad? Not the a-hole. He hasn't worked as long as I've known him, 8 years. No reason behind it. I feel like another option, if he's at home too, I'd have him manage the kids, take them to the park, local pool, etc. Nice idea, but let's be real. Any person who remains willfully unemployed after their house burns down and being forced to stay with in-laws is not someone who is going to step up and take an additional parental duties. Info, is your sister-in-law and her family contributing to your household in the form of rent or anything else? Not that it really matters, because you're right that it's your kids' home and they shouldn't have to be quiet in it all the time. She helps with around $200 worth of food a month, because we eat all meals together. Other than that, no. Definitely not the a-hole. She's pretty much freeloading and trying to dictate the rules here. She can get her own apartment if she wants to control her environment. Otherwise, she's a guest. Last story. Am I the a-hole for expecting to meet my grandchild? My 42 male son, J18, is having a baby with his girlfriend Kate, 18. I will be honest in saying I don't think they are ready for this. They have been together for less than a year, but she is due in July. Obviously, I know that things happen, so we are doing our best to embrace it. And I'm excited to meet this new little person. Anyways, Kate's family isn't involved. They honestly weren't great parents to begin with. When they found out, they kicked their pregnant 17-year-old to the streets. My son and her were living with me until 2 weeks ago when they got their first apartment. I'm extremely proud of them. We had a room set up for the baby, but since they got their own place, I let them take all the baby items I purchased. I mean a fully furnished nursery, and then of course everything from the shower. The baby isn't going to be wanting for much. Well, the baby is breech. They have tried everything to get that baby to turn, but nothing. So they have a C-section scheduled for July 3rd, assuming the baby doesn't flip or she goes into labor. I requested this day off of work, and then asked my son and Kate if they would like me to pick them up, or if they plan to have my son drive them. My son was confused and told me that he would drive them. Why would I drive them? I told him I was just offering, and told him I'd be in the waiting room waiting for her to get out of the surgery. Then Kate jumped in and said they weren't having any visitors at a hospital. She said she needed time to heal, and they wanted to bond with the baby. She said it would just be the two of them and her sister. I'll admit I was pretty taken aback. I mean, I feel like as the grandparent, I'm closer than the aunt, but whatever. I said okay because I didn't want to fight, and said I would be waiting at their house. Kate jumped back in again and said the only visitor they would be having was her older sister. She said she would be in pain, bleeding, and trying to breastfeed, and that she wanted privacy to do that. She also said that I never got my TDAP booster, which I don't need as I had it maybe 5 years ago when I had to go to the ER for a cut. So I couldn't come until the baby had its first shots or I got the shot. I pointed out to her that if she didn't have a natural birth, that she wouldn't be bleeding, and it would just be a surgery recovery. She could stay in the bedroom and relax, and my son could bring her the baby when it's hungry. She told me that nobody was taking her newborn from her. Lots of other things were said, and I feel extremely taken advantage of. I sheltered and provided for her and my son when I didn't have to. Plus, I give to them a lot. And now see a lot of other narc tendencies from her. And I feel like it's World War III with my poor boy caught in the middle. I don't feel like an a-hole, but she and my son are saying I am. Am I the a-hole? You absolutely bleed after a C-section first of all. Second of all, you're the a-hole, and it sounds like your poor boy is on his girlfriend's side. Stop taking it so personally. Yep, I bled for 5 weeks. 5 weeks? I am so jealous. I bled for 9 to 10 weeks. So we get to bleed just like a natural birth. but also get the fun of recovering from a hair abdominal surgery at the same time. And of course, the doctor comes into my room just a few hours after delivery, telling me how I'm a good candidate for a VBAC. I'm like, nope, one and done, my good sir. I didn't even need to read past the title to know you're the a-hole. However, I did. This is a classic you owe me parent behavior. Yikes. Back off before you do more damage. Right? Good people. I do things to help because I care about my son and his family. OP? I do things to help because I want to guilt my son and his family into catering to my demands. You should have warned them your generosity came with a lot of strings attached. How about you show this new-to-be mom some respect and privacy while recovering from a life-altering event? You're the a-hole.